Ballot proposals are interesting because you and Tony and I and anybody listening right now, we get to decide as if we're a legislator on an issue instead of a person. And Tony Daunt is with us, the executive director of the Michigan Freedom Fund, with a potential ballot proposal that's very, very important. And we're wondering, will it make the ballot? Thank you for being here this morning.
Well, good morning. Thanks for having me.
You have your eye particularly on the prevailing wage repeal proposal. Can you bring us up to date? First off, for the casual listener, what is that? Second of all, what are the chances of it getting on the ballot?
All right. Well, probably the easiest way to describe what the prevailing wage is it's a special government mandate that local and state construction projects have to pay inflated wages, which amount to what the union-based wages are on those projects, and it's unnecessary. It raises the cost. It doesn't improve any of the quality. And we believe that the market should set the rates, and in particular that when we're using state and local tax dollars, that we should be getting the best deal for the dollar. And in terms of the initiative, we've taken, ABC has been the lead on this, the Associated Builders and Contractors of Michigan. We are big supporters of them and their free market mindset, and they have collected signatures, 390,000 some signatures through the initiated law process, and waiting to hear from really the Supreme Court on a couple of things. And then the intention is that once that's cleared, the Board of Canvassers will put it before the legislature, and the legislature will vote, and it actually wouldn't be on the ballot in November.
Oh, so this could be done right across the street from us here instead of through the ballot initiative.
It could, yes, which is kind of what the goal has been. Unfortunately, this route was necessary because there's a demand out there. The legislature wants to see this outdated mandate repealed, and the governor is not necessarily supportive of the idea. And so our Constitution allows us to collect signatures from enough citizens across the state, and then the legislature can act, and the governor's signature, Republican, Democrat, otherwise, in terms of governors, is not necessary for things like this.
Interesting. And I suppose the public sentiment, if you said to them, we're going to have the opportunity here to have the best deal for construction with your tax dollars, be tough for them to turn that down, wouldn't it?
You would think so, yes. And that's, we are very supportive, as I mentioned, of repealing this. States around Michigan, surrounding Michigan, have, with the exception of maybe one of them, have all recently repealed prevailing wage. Wisconsin did just a number of years ago, and construction projects are, they're getting more of them because as anytime you make something more expensive or tax it more, you're going to get less of it. And so we think that using our tax dollars, they're scarce, and they are it's our money. We shouldn't be paying more just because there's a law in place that says we have to.
Can you cite any other situation in business in the United States where there's a mandated carve-out like that for a special interest group?
Oh, gosh. Off the top of my head, I can't cite something specific, but I got to imagine that because of the way government operates, there is somewhere.
Why are the courts so involved?
Well, we had the Board of Canvassers certified with 100% certainty that we had Protecting Michigan Taxpayers, which is the name of the ballot question committee, that they had submitted enough signatures for this to be placed before the legislature. And unfortunately, the two Democrats on the Board of Canvassers, it's a 4-member body, 2 Republicans, 2 Democrats, they voted against certification because of some nebulous legal challenge that they thought was necessary. We were very forceful in expressing our disappointment in that. And
Yeah. So let's find out what happens next with Tony Daunt. If you'll stay right there, I'll be right here.
Hi, this is John Prescott, and I listen to Michael Patrick in the morning because we actually started our careers at about the same time in our early 20s. Me for Governor Engler and him for J.P. McCarthy. He's a great guy, and I listen to him all the time.
Hey, thanks. I just got a text from State Representative Larry Inman, the Republican from Traverse City, who is listening in this morning to my interview with Tony Daunt, Executive Director of the Michigan Freedom Fund, and it's about a 1965 law that guarantees union-level pay and benefits for construction workers on projects funded by state government, but that inflates construction costs, and guess who pays for those costs? You and me and the rest of the taxpayers, and Tony Daunt is updating us on what happens next in the effort to repeal that law. What happens next in the courts? What happens next in the legislature? Where do you go from here?
All right. Well, we're waiting for the Supreme Court to decide what they are going to do with the case. About 2 weeks ago now, the Court of Appeals, 3-judge panel, ruled unanimously, 3-0, that the legal challenge that the opponents to repeal, who are a collection of labor union groups that benefit from this carve-out, they filed a challenge to the signatures and the validity of the signatures, and Board of Canvassers and the Bureau of Elections had overruled them, said with 100% certainty we've got the signatures. Court of Appeals agreed, and the opponents are undergoing and taking their legal process as is their right, and the Supreme Court provided a stay to the Court of Appeals ruling so that they could take a look, and so we're just patiently waiting for them to have a look at the facts of the case, and we're confident that they will see that the Court of Appeals was correct, and then it'll go before the legislature, and they'll have 40 days to act, and we're confident that the votes are there in the House and the Senate to repeal this costly mandate.
That Board of State Canvassers is a powerful and mysterious sort of group, and I say that because the average person would have no idea who they are, what they are, and who they're accountable to. True?
I think that is a fair statement, and it's I was talking to a friend of mine who's an attorney, and they were like, "What's the Board of Canvassers?" So for those of us who work in Lansing, it makes we know who they are and what they do, but you're right, it's mysterious. Sometimes it's kind of like electing the Pope, waiting for the black clouds or the white clouds to see what's going on.
Despite the fact that you have hundreds of thousands of valid signatures.
Yeah, and that was the really disappointing thing with the action from the Board of Canvassers a couple weeks ago when this was before them, which led to the court challenges in particular, was the two Democrats acted against at least 10 years of kind of precedent that where the Bureau of Elections, they recommend certification based on the signatures and the form of the petition, and they voted against it. And we're still disappointed. Our organization called for those two Democrats to resign because they were abdicating their responsibility to the 390,000 individuals who signed that petition to repeal prevailing wage and doing the bidding of their union bosses, basically.
Hardball politics, it sounds like, that's for sure. Will you keep us up to date on what happens?
Absolutely. Would be happy to do so, and look forward to speaking about this issue when I finally get around to getting it repealed.
Thank you very much. Tony Daunt, Executive Director of the Michigan Freedom Fund.